Les Gold hosts hardcore porn. Anyone who has seen a reality show about a pawn shop has definitely seen it. In this interesting reality show, Les Gold, an experienced pawn shop owner and pawnbroker, shows off his skills with interesting and valuable pawn items. Hardcore porn suddenly stopped airing after many epic seasons. What took place? Was there trouble inside? Less people watching? Or something even worse? Today, we're going to talk about the real reason why hardcore porn stopped, what extreme porn is, and how it works. The American reality TV show Hardcore Porn is made by Zodiac Media and Richard Dominic Productions for True TV. The show is mostly about American Jewelry and Loans, a pawn shop in Detroit, Michigan, that is owned and run by a family along 8 Mile Road. The show showed what goes on behind the scenes at the pawn shop every day, including the strange things people bring in and the unique problems the staff has to deal with. When it first aired on August 16, 2010, Hardcore Porn was a big deal. 2 million people watched it, which is a huge number, winning the title of True TV's most watched series launch. The show had more than 3 million steady watchers by June 2013. Although Hardcore Porn was a hit, production stopped all of a sudden in 2014. This caused the show to be canceled, leaving fans to wonder what happened. However, its effects and influence are still felt by people who saw it. They chose it because it showed an amazing part of working in one of Detroit's most famous pawn shops. Les Gold owns American Jewelry and Loan. He is a pawn shop owner and business owner with a lot of experience. Because Les is the third generation of his family to work as a pawnbroker, he chose to carry on the business with his own children. His grandfather was a well-known pawn shop owner who ran Sam's Loans, a pawn shop on Detroit's Michigan Avenue that is no longer open. American Jewelry and Loan opened in 1978 in Oak Park at the Green 8 Shopping Center on 8 Mile Road. In 1993, it moved to its new location on Greenfield Road. Because the pawn shop was so successful, they opened a second site in Pontiac in 2011 when they bought Premier Jewelry and Loan. The second site was shown in the first few episodes of the 5th season of Hardcore Porn and in 2 episodes of the 6th season. Les Gold, his family, and their pawn shops are at the center of Hardcore Porn. Rich Dominic, an independent producer, was inspired by Les TV ads that ran during commercial breaks on The Jerry Springer Show in 1998. This was the start of the show. Richard thought Les and his pawn shop could make a good reality TV show, so he got in touch with them with the idea. Even though Les' family was skeptical at first, Les was sure that the reality show would be a good plan and jumped on it. This led to the production of a pilot in late 2009. Over 30 people worked on the show. Les' wife Lily was the office manager. Les' son Seth was in charge of the marketing division. Les' daughter Ashley was in charge of the jewelry department, and Les' niece Karen Mitchell was in charge of the assistant jewelry department. People really enjoyed watching the competition between Ashley, Seth, and Karen, who are cousins and siblings. However, Les thinks that people really enjoy watching them because they have great customer service. There is loyalty and treachery. Les fires Rich. Which shocked people the most on Hardcore Porn was the sour taste of betrayal between Rich Pyle and Les. People who watched the show couldn't believe that they fired Rich, who was one of his most reliable workers, for one small mistake. On social media, fans were very upset about Rich's departure from the show and wanted to know why Les would do something so bad over one mistake. There's no doubt that Rich was a fan favorite on the show, known by many for his sense of humor, his spiked hair, and his creative beards. Rich had been Les' store manager for 25 years, which is a long time before the show started to be filmed and put together. It was the end of Rich's time on the show after 6 seasons of Hardcore Porn when he got into a fight with Les over his duties. So, what did really happen? Why did Rich lose his job? When Les did his regular check of the building during business hours, he saw that Rich wasn't at his assigned job post in the layaway. Because Les was angry, he called out for Rich. But he didn't come right away. Les thought Rich had quit his job for personal reasons, so he kept calling Rich and telling him to come to his office for a talk. Les asked Rich why he wasn't at his desk when he went by Liza's office. Rich defended his actions by saying that he couldn't just sit at the layaway all day waiting for something to happen, and that he had to take care of something on the floor. He was so angry with Rich's answer that he decided to fire him even though Rich had worked for him for over 20 years. When Les tried to explain what he did, he brought up the warning he had given everyone before. The next employee who did something wrong would be fired. He said that Rich had put him in a tough spot, but he had to leave because other workers might not have taken his threats seriously. Rich wasn't going to give up easily. He disagreed with Les's choice. He talked about how dedicated he was to the business for a long time, saying that he was even more dedicated than Les's 2 children. Les didn't fire him because of this small mistake. There was, however, a heated fight between the two, with Rich complaining about how he was being treated after years of loyalty. Hearing the heated argument finally told Rich to leave the building, which meant that he would no longer be working there. Even though it's strange that Les fired Rich from the show for a small mistake, there are other reasons behind his choice. The last straw that broke the camel's back was Rich's small mistake. Let's look at some other likely reasons why Rich had Les fire. Rich was taking company money for personal use, and the audit team found that he was also reportedly making up financial records to hide the theft. The audit observation report showed that Rich's staff transactions were not accountable or following the right procedures. Investigators found that Rich often used company credit cards for personal costs and filed expensive refund claims without getting permission to do so. Was caught adding false information to his expense records, such as falsely listing more people who attended different events. Rich had a lot of customer complaints as well, pointing out instances of incompetence and neglect of duty. During his time at American Jewelry, co-workers said they saw this kind of questionable or improper behavior. Bob Janik, who works at the pawn shop with Rich, talked about why he thought Les fired Rich. Bobby said he saw that Rich had put more emphasis on going on TV shows than on working. Bobby talked about times when Rich didn't pay attention to his work duties but instead spent more time getting pictures with fans. The end of raw porn wasn't because of this small problem with Rich, though. Dynamics at work? Les takes Tony off work. Even though Les isn't a perfect boss, he does want his workers to get along with each other and work toward a healthy culture and environment. He is a strong opponent of verbal abuse, even though he called his employees names when he was angry. You can't really question or fire the boss. Les didn't let his workers swear at each other, and he even fired people who did. Tony, one of Les's workers, was fired during the show because he talked badly to a female worker. Tony was rude to a co-worker and told her to move out of the way while using bad language. Because Tony's words hurt her so much, she told management about it. In response to the report about Tony's use of bad language at work, Les called him into his office for an investigation. When Tony got there, Les challenged him and said that he had used offensive language directly toward Heather, a co-worker, while Brian and Ashley were there. Les said the same things Tony did and asked him to prove that he really said those things. Tony strongly denied the accusation and asked Les to back up his claim with proof. What shocked and irritated Les was Tony's bold move of not telling the truth, calling for proof instead. After the first time, Les asked him again to check if he had said anything rude to Linda. Even though Les kept trying to get him to admit wrongdoing, Tony kept saying that he had only made a sale with a customer. When Les got annoyed that Tony wouldn't help, he changed his tone and became kinder. He told Tony to tell the truth. Tony was told by Les that he would be okay if he told the truth and the problem would be fixed. Tony said that he was going to lose anyway because he knew he was on the edge of victory. Tony asked Les to explain what would happen if people broke the rules without looking into it further. He was upset that Les didn't ask to hear his side of the story, which he thought was cruel. He begged Les to know what he was feeling. It sounds like Linda set him up on purpose. Tony's problem was that Les didn't care about his worries. Les said it didn't matter if Linda set Tony up on purpose, as long as Tony made the sales and didn't say anything rude or break the rules. Even though Tony tried to hide the truth from Les, there was proof that Tony had lied to him. Les hates 2 things: being lied to and having someone treat his employee badly. At a crucial moment, Les pushed Tony one more time to confess, and Tony finally admitted that he had used rude words toward Linda. Tony said the exact words he used to make it clear that what Linda said wasn't fully true. Tony got a letter from Brian suspending him because he admitted breaking the rules. He was supposed to come back later that week on Saturday. He didn't want to sign the papers, but he did before leaving the office in a rage. When Brian and Ashley thought back on what happened,